This show contains strong language. If you're a sensitive little bitch, we recommend you change the station immediately so your little girl feelings don't get hurt.
Live from Washington, D.C., it's the Paydirt Football Show.
Are you trying to give me the double talk?
You talk too much.
And now, sit back and listen to 2 hours of biased, brainless blithering sure to drop your sports IQ by at least 20 points.
7 years of college down the drain.
Paydirt is on the air.
Welcome, everyone, to PAFL's radio show, or I guess YouTube show you can call it for this week. It's week 5 of season 10, and I got Joe and I got Calvin here with me, and we're going to talk about week 5 stuff. So, Calvin, why don't you get us kicked off?
Yeah, well, welcome everybody into we've got 3 new owners, and if you heard 2 hours, we don't go 2 hours. We go maybe 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah, we used 2 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. I remember that. It would go over an hour. But where I wanted to start with is, we lost a long-time gamer, Pete K. I don't know how to pronounce his last name correctly. And that was sad to lose 50 League Pete. And then I just happened to pick up on something, and I put it in the shout box because, it might creep you out, or it might, who knows what you think about it. But on the very first play for Pittsburgh, for our new owner, Jason Jennings, his first play, he returned a kickoff all the way for a touchdown for Pittsburgh.
I saw that.
And you look at the guy, Jared Peterson, had none in real life. And his long in real life was 31. But I'm not doing this to make fun of the game, because they've been adding more and more random type features.
Yeah.
But it was kind of maybe a good tribute to Pete. First play without Pete, they take it to the house. So I thought that was good. It was.
So how much do we know about him? I mean, he was in almost every league on the internet.
He was in almost every league. So an interesting story is when Pierce Roberts was in the league, and Pierce and I got to talk quite a bit over the last couple of years, chatting and things. And Pierce, he actually would Google people. He wants to figure out who he's playing with. Maybe a lot of people do that. I don't do that much, but he brought up a story about Pete. You can type in Pete's name, and Kutztown University, K-U-T-E-Z, town, it's in Pennsylvania. And he used to be something to do in athletics, almost like an athletic director. And this article popped up where he uncovered something that was, let's say, below board, and he reported it.
Yeah.
And he resigned his position immediately. So Pierce would tell me, well, that's the type of guy I want to be friends with. This type of guy that you want in leagues. This guy is definitely above board.
Yeah.
So that was a Pete story. And the other thing I just learned in another league, they said, they were talking about Pete, and they're like, the reason he always typed in all caps because his vision was failing.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that. So there's a couple Pete stories that I ran across, but
he was he I don't know if, do you know of any leagues where he actually won Super Bowls or anything like that?
I'm not sure. He has made the playoffs in a couple leagues, but generally speaking, his teams were usually rebuilding. He surprised me. The PSAFL, I thought he had a very, very good team the first year, but they just underachieved. But they talk about in this other league I'm in, they talk about, well, he was there more for the camaraderie to play, not to gouge you in a trade.
Yeah, and that's
kind of play the game.
And that's good. And you get those. You get the guys who come into these leagues and they just come here to play and have fun. They don't invest a lot of time into trying to build the team or scout their opponent. They're just here to have fun.
And again, in many leagues as he had, I had to cut from 4 to 3 because 4 was too much. And really, I'm about to go from 3 to 2, honestly, because it's just too much. And I think 50 leagues,
yeah,
it must be, it's probably, it's just kind of, he maybe didn't have, a lot of family or friends. When I read his obituary, he just had a sister or something, if I read it correctly. His parents were dead, and maybe it was just his escape, his hobby, where some watch TV, some do this. So he would just play the 50 games, and, that's how he spent his week, which is perfectly fine. I like it because it's engaging. You're doing something mentally, not just mentally checking out or something. So that would be my guess about Pete. So he was good. He was always cordial. He did get, upset once at our last free agent bidding. He kind of missed the rules. He got up first time I've seen him get upset about something, but he was, he'll be greatly missed.
Yeah, he will.
You can definitely say Pete was a curmudgeon.
Yeah.
I think most of us are. I know I'm a curmudgeon.
But Pete had experience at it.
And then we lost the other two owners. We lost Alexis because of work.
Yeah.
And we lost the other owner. So when I had these people coming in, and at first I was really, I looked at Seattle. I'm like, "Woo, this team's quite a mess here." And I'm like, I figure I'm going to be running them on the side, and we'll have people draft for them. It's going to be an uphill battle. But then Daryl from Buffalo, he IM'd me on Slack, and he said, actually, Seattle's the type of team I would be looking for if I'm coming into a league. Sure, they've got a lot of work to do, but he's got all his picks, and it's kind of fun and it's a challenge. So with that backdrop, I actually had two people come in, and two of them would have taken Seattle in spite of me saying that, this is an uphill battle, but they looked at it. So we ended up with John Daniels taking them.
Yeah.
And then we have Tim Alley, I hope I pronounced these names right, who took over
Detroit.
And he's interesting. He plays a game I used to play. I call it APPA. Some people call it APA. So when I was young, I'd roll the dice. So he mentioned that. So he's
I remember that old game. It was a good old game. I was mainly playing back then. I was mainly playing status quo football.
Yeah, I've got I've got one version of that, the college version.
Yeah, they had the little player cards.
Yeah. And then, sometimes I remember you put out an article about top owners, best GM, this, that, or the other. And usually, what pops to my mind of the best owner would be Brendan of Tampa Bay, who took over the former Saints, who took over a mess, which was 4 years in the making, and an owner like that takes, again, a Seattle type challenge, probably worse, honestly, than this Seattle team. And he's built them steadily, and Tampa Bay is on the rise. So when I think of owners, I think of Brandon, and I even think of when we had Hank. I was surprised, because Hank's kind of got a reputation, and he came and took over San Diego, and I'm like, wow, why is Hank taking over San Diego? But they're a mess. But he did a good job his few years he was there rebuilding it. So that's, we're kind of talking just various topics here, but I thought it was good to start a little different this week before we get into some of the games and things like that.
Right. So, well, here we are. Let me let me throw that up there, and we can talk about Joe. Let's talk about the game picks.
Okay. Yeah, let me get those up here.
His top one is brutal. I don't know if you looked at the play-by-play. And my good friend Bob Dufree, we used to play in Strat basketball leagues before I dialed that back. Did you look at that? Did you guys look at that game at all, the play-by-play?
I did not. I saw the score. I know Bob's Indy, so.
Indy Bob was up 20-0.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
I don't want to rub it into Bob, but 20-0. And then you know how the game goes. Big Mo can change, and all of a sudden, you're not up 20-0.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in my game when we get to that.
Yeah, that's right.
I pulled my guys. I pulled my starters out.
I don't blame you. Mahomes couldn't miss.
Right.
Taylor couldn't run.
And that's about the time I pulled my starters about the time Mahomes was 12 of 12, and just nothing was working. You get those games once in a while with this game. And nothing was working. I was thinking, man, I'm just going to eat up usage for these guys, and this is a losing cause. So I just pulled them out.
So you're going to share your comment, Joe?
It's reason number 317 why I should learn from my mistakes in the past and never underestimate Kenny. On paper, I was thinking that Indy was going to go toe to toe with him. And it looked like, as far as on the game, when it was played, again, when you're up 20-0, but, Kenny has a way of putting together a game plan. Especially, I think when I played him 3 times last year, the one thing I was most impressed is the way he adapts during the game, probably as well as any coach I've played.
He's got Adams, he's got Kelsey, he's got Brady, but yeah, it was. Yeah, it's just pain. This game will drive you nuts when you're up 20-0. But again, 20-0 on Kenny, like you say, I would not be
You do not take your foot off
drinking
the
my
gas.
champagne yet, because that was in the second quarter. It was 20-0, and I think they went in a half about 20-10, if my memory's right, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they that was a game that I thought was going to be very close, and then when you're up 20-0, you'd like to think, you know, you can somehow put the game plan together to take it over the top. But this game is weird.
Yep.
This game is weird.
It
So,
can
Yeah,
be.
I think Bob got flustered, and I would be there too, because he went for it like 4th and 1 on inside his 20 as well. But I get it when momentum is totally against you, and that didn't go well either. So that gave the Rams another score.
But and then this next game, Jacksonville versus Cincinnati, I really think that's going to be. If Cincinnati does not, since you hate to go into in week 5 and say these are must-win type of games, but right now I kind of look at it like in the AFC you have Cleveland and Jacksonville as like 1A, and then 1B is like Buffalo. Cincinnati is right there too, but I don't, and they're going to have a good showing against Jacksonville to be, in my mind, totally legit. They're going to make the playoffs. Question is, what seed are they going to be, and what's the chances of them going all the way? And I like I said, I think they're a juggernaut as far as Jacksonville goes, and so I mean, they're playing in Cincy, so maybe that home field advantage. I still have yet to figure out if that home field advantage is real.
I mean, if you can look at the play analysis screen, I don't know if you ever play with that. It shows you you can click on the button, home field on and off, and it does a little bit with the percents and a little bit with the yards per carry. Nino's tough, but
Yeah, he's a great coach.
If you just get into the playoffs, then you just let the chips flow where they may. So, that'll be a good game for Sean. Sean may have more pressure on him than Nino. Nino's got a proven track record of, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now that I just motivated Sean, so I try not to say things that motivate owners, but.
Well, Sean, I mean, I know there was talk and chatter in Slack about as far as talking about the trade deadline, and as far as this season goes, I didn't see any trades in this month that are going to, move the needle that much one way or the other. Godwin and Tyreek Hill this season are roughly the same. In fact, I even counted them out. I think they're within one catch left for the season between the two of them. They're both rated 9. Now next year it'll be a big difference and stuff, but when you go like is a first round pick for Jacksonville, who's probably going to be late, is it worth a second and a third, so
yeah, that's basically a wash. A late one for a second and a third. There was nothing gained in that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, everything's going to be gained next year. So, and then Denver, Minnesota, and that game got played already. And I was wondering, because this is if there's any team that I have thought, wow, where did I really miss calling it? Minnesota has really not met expectations. Now they've been in some close games. But at 2-3, they're in danger of making the playoffs. You only got
Eric. You'll make the playoffs. Don't sweat it. I think he'll make the playoffs. He's played a pretty tough opening set, I think. And who was it? Tennessee beat them. Bears beat them. Denver. Don did a good job this week. Lance is still in the hospital, by the way, for Denver. So we appreciate Don sub-coaching. Lance is getting better. I talked to him this week via email. But Don was thinking he was trashing Lance's team and he was going to get fired. But at least he pulled out a win this week.
Well, he's got one more week.
Yeah.
And then Cleveland and Pittsburgh, well...
That's the game we just talked about, where the opening kickoff went to the house.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Pete. I'm sure the thing is, I'm sure that Pete would have as much as he appreciated the irony of all that. He probably sitting up there going, "Damn, why didn't he do it for me?" Uh, and then Tennessee, Miami. This is a game where I'm sitting there. I mean, again, you have two teams with the same record, but I think they're vastly different teams. I think Tennessee, they've gotten some hard breaks. They've had some tough losses, and I think that they've gotten they've just got a defense that's much better than what Miami has, and I think that they're going to win that game, and they're going to win it somewhat decisively. Again, DKS gods can have their way with it, but I think Bob's due. And then Dallas and Philly. Now this is probably the game of the East, because this is I don't know when you're playing that game, Lynn.
Let's see. I actually not have gotten in touch with him yet, so
Okay.
I think I emailed him. I just not heard back yet.
But this is going to show your legitimacy. How legit you're going to be, because if you end up winning, you'll end up having you'll have basically almost a 3-game lead,
Right.
or 2 on Philly. But if Philly wins and then the Giants, they should win, now you're going to have a 3-way tie at for first.
Yep.
And so makes things a whole lot tighter. So
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the team. He's got a good team. I mean, I think my offense can hang with anyone. My defense is a little on the slack side. So, and I've really had trouble with building Dallas's defense in the PAFL all along. It's been very difficult. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to scout the hell out of him.
Again, the NFC East is tough. There's 3 really good teams.
right.
And so we got, I think in both leagues, we got about 8 or 9 teams that can make the playoffs. You got Dallas, you got Philadelphia, you got the Giants, you got the Vikings, you got the Bears, you got both LAs, and you got Arizona. And I'm sliding a team like maybe a Green Bay with some breaks, or maybe a Detroit. They could maybe, so there's a lot of competition there.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and the problem is that only 6 teams make the playoffs, and you almost can't write off any of the teams in the AFC or NFC East.
Right.
And then
even with Baker Mayfield, I mean, I was talking to Ken some on Slack. Baker's throwing the cup though, and then that can make Baker a lot better. So we'll see.
Yeah. So I mean, it's starting. It depends on really, this game this week. I mean, if you turn around and if Dallas wins and then they drop Philly to 2 and 3. Okay, well now that helps out Minnesota as far as trying to get back in there. But if you end up having, if Eric doesn't watch it, he's going to fall a couple games behind, and then that's where he's going to have to do a lot of catch up in the second half season. Not saying he can't do it, but it puts him behind the 8 ball.
Well, at least Dallas won't go into the game overconfident after last week's debacle. So.
Oh my.
Yeah.
But it is a contrast in styles. I view Philly more of a defensive team, and you're more of an offensive team. So it'll be an interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see. They say defense wins, though.
Yeah. And then Buffalo and New Orleans, that game's already been played, and they're the only reason I don't put them in the same category as Cleveland and Jacksonville is I'm just trying to wrap my brain around a team with the 26th, with the top scoring offense, but the 26th rated in yards. And they've got a phenomenal defense, and they do have a good, but their defense isn't as good as Cleveland's. And so you wonder, it's like, they're definitely a playoff caliber team. I think they're going to be in there, but I'm looking forward to when they're playing Jacksonville and Cleveland and see how those games look. They're
tough. If Jackson plays and Cook. You got a lot of runs to offset the pass, keep the defense off balance. So, yeah, Buffalo is a sneaky team against another team I wouldn't want to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, but they're a running team, but they're only averaging 3.8 yards a carry. And if you look at their top 2 running backs, They're only averaging 2. Now, I mean, as long as the chains move, you're fine, and you do have Lamar to do that. But as so far, they haven't really relied on Lamar to win them a game throwing. So, like I said, they've got some games ahead, but right now they're on a roll, and their defense is, like I said, trying to score against them. Good luck. Chicago, Tampa Bay. I'm not going to talk too much about this one, Calvin. You're
Tomorrow night at 6. I think
Yeah.
it's 6 Central, 6 or 7 Central. We play that game.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan's days will be better. Days are ahead, but and you're the other legit team, I think, that as far as right up there as far as top contender for going to the Super Bowl. So you've been tough so far. I've read every one of your box scores, and you're doing it without Jalen Hurts really throwing the ball all that much.
I'm following the Eagle model. I got better defense this year. Last year was offense. This year got defense. So we'll see.
Carolina and Green Bay. If you had asked me last week, I would have sat there and I would have said, "Oh, Green Bay should win this somewhat comfortably." But after Carolina did what they did against Dallas, I'm like, you feel a little cautious because again, Mahomes could be Mahomes. And
Green Bay's got a chance here, right, with the Minnesota loss. If they want to try to edge and sneak in the playoffs, this is the game to win.
And again, you hate to call any games like crucial, especially when you're talking week 5. But whenever Green Bay does play Minnesota, those are going to be crucial games because I think one of those teams will be competitive for a playoff spot. And if they don't at least get a split, whoever does it, if one team sweeps the other one's probably not going to make the playoffs.
There's no more than 2 teams coming from the Central. I could see 3 coming from the other divisions, but no, Central will be lucky to have. Should have 2, but that's about it.
And then you're looking at the Giants versus the Redskins, and I would think the Giants should be able to take care of business on this one. Though I will say this, Andy's played a lot better this year so far than preseason I would have suspected. So,
yeah, I guess for Andy's sake, he needs an off Baker Mayfield game to. But I mean, he's got those 2 hammers of a back. He's got Henry and Barkley, so he's got.
Oh yeah, I mean, if he can control the ball. I mean, if he can run against that defense, that'll keep him in the game. And so far, he's been, like I said, he's been a lot more successful than you would have suspected at the beginning of the season. And then Vegas and San Francisco. I will have to say, one of my biggest flaws, and I was telling this to Don earlier today, I think one of my biggest failings in preseason predictions was thinking that he could make Davis Mills do what Trubisky did last year. And Davis Mills just isn't Trubisky, he's Davis Mills. And it's really holding him back. I mean, the Vegas has been in a lot of games, but they just haven't been, they're not putting up the offensive points that they did last year.
They went for 2, I think. They went for the win. Otherwise, they could have gone in OT. But it's kind of a critical game. I mean, they're not out of it. If they lose, the Raiders would just be looking uphill because they would be 4 losses, and San Francisco would have 1 if my memory is right.
Right. Yeah, they're 3-1, and Todd's winning all the games that he's supposed to, and plus he's winning a few that he shouldn't. So it's it's one of those things where San Francisco, if they manage to sneak a win against Denver, or did they may have already done that. But they sneak a win against Denver. I mean, they're going to be they're going to be in the driver's seat. Yeah, they beat Denver earlier in the game in week 2. So Seattle, Kansas City. This is kind of like a playoff spot for the draft, and
Chiefs already won this game.
Oh, Chiefs already won this. Okay, so
Chiefs are sitting there at 2-3. They're going to be like tied for second.
they've got a few weapons. I mean, that little trade that they made, everybody's talking about the trade Jacksonville made, but the trade that where they, traded the octogenarians on the 5th, they got a second weapon. They got a second guy out there in Emmanuel Sanders. So in other words, it's not just a Jamar Chase show.
Right.
And, their defense still, their secondary still needs a lot of work, but
he's got a ton of picks.
He's got a ton of picks, and plus he gets to play Seattle twice this year. So,
and he being Paul.
Yeah, I mean, hey, like I said, I think he's done a really good job with that team.
Hey, he's been here about 1 year. Yeah, he's doing really well.
Right. And then Chargers at Atlanta. Chargers got a rough start here at the first 3 games of the year. They lost their first 3, but they were all against really good teams. And then they beat Andy last week, and then this week they're sitting there and they're playing Atlanta. So I would think they would certainly it would be a monumental upset if Atlanta beat Chargers, and I don't see that happening. And so now you're going to see the Chargers back in the playoff race.
And for Atlanta, I mean, unless Zach Wilson suddenly figures it out, they're still back at step 1, ground zero, looking for a quarterback next year.
Well, at least there's several touted. So
yes, felt like he should have his choice of at least one of the top 3.
Well, between him and Seattle, I would think, I mean, they're gonna. Right. I'll be curious to see who ends up with the top pick. And then finally, I already played Detroit last night. Tim's a great guy, and I just ran the ball. Because they've got those really good corners, and it's like this was a game where it's like, I don't think I'm going to pass that much.
Yeah, and he's hurting. He's got 3 linebackers out. We've been talking about if he's going to claim some players, and I just let him know if he claims it can only be a $350K salary, and you got to drop somebody. And I had to clarify, he doesn't have to claim anybody. He thought he did. But our rules for rosters only at the beginning of the year. Our rules are not saying every single game you have to have all of these players. But he's kind of in a spot. I mean, Alexis did a good job, but when you look at his linebackers, he's got like 3 linebackers with like a 1 or 2 durability, so they ain't gonna last, and they're already out for many, many games.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was really kind of a no-brainer for me. It's like, just run the ball, and that's how I won yesterday. I would imagine you would have done the exact same thing, Calvin, except you would have probably got more yards.
I don't have my gold-plated offensive line, but we'll see. We might finish on time, Lynn. I mean, I say we got 5 minutes left or so, but
yeah,
we can talk about. I mean, if you want to give like predictions and divisions or whatever you want to talk about, or if you want to go longer, I don't.
Yeah, let's go longer. I'm going to put it on pause here, and we'll start a new one just in case we need a little more time. Okay. Okay, so we've already done the little pause here. So we've got some more time. So what do you want to cover next, Calvin, Joe, whatever y'all want to do?
Well, one thing, we can talk about playoff teams. And I know Mr. Don Merlenbach wanted some predictions on like division winners and playoffs. So that would be a fun thing to do. But while I'm mentioning Don, he did a good job with his articles. So on his early mock draft, and Don's been doing some good stuff. A lot of times it's on Slack. It's not on our website, but I catch his documents from time to time and put them on the main website, so it gets more exposure. And to our 3 new members, I know I haven't invited you to Slack yet, and I eventually will. But just so you know, and everybody knows, generally speaking on Slack, and Joe can keep me straight here, we have about half of the people. We don't have full participation that's active on Slack. There's about half of us that are there from time to time, but you're more than welcome to join if I finally send you the invite.
Yeah, the topics tend to be a little looser on Slack than they are on, website is much more focused, and it's also it's much it's much showier and glitzier.
Yeah, Slack is good for like if you just want to try to schedule a game perhaps, and I see you online. Slack is good for that. Or maybe if you want to reach out for a trade, you can. I mean, email works just as fine. But
Yeah, scheduling. Let me tap in there for just a second.
Yeah.
Scheduling's good. Working out the deals of the trade is good, but it must always be done. The trade must always be finalized on site. One thing, I don't want any articles over there because we're trying to focus on the website. Remember, it costs about $600 a year to run this stuff, and the more people I get on the site actually makes a few pennies more. Every time somebody visits that site, it's a little bit of money that goes towards keeping things running. So the things that can be done behind the scenes, like working out the deals, things like that, whatever you need to do, scheduling your games, it makes an easy way to schedule your games, that's fine. But anytime you want to put an article up or something, or communicate with the league in general, that's what the shout box is for, is communicating with the league in general. The articles for your team articles, things like that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and again, that's why I try to, Don puts it in Word, and I get it. To go from Word into our format is a little bit clumsy. So that's why I just took it and just stuck it inside of an article.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. So I do try to move everything over. But, for Slack, it is just a little bit alternate. I use Slack too sometimes when we're playing games and we have just real time, an independent way of communicating on the side. I use Slack if I was playing Joe and Joe's on Slack, we might say, hey, game just crashed or something. But
yeah,
again, as Lynn said, it's just an auxiliary thing that
right.
we have. It's not our, we don't do any primary business at all on Slack.
I can never get logged back in there, so I'm gonna have to get with you and get figured out why. I think I just forgot my info. For some reason I didn't write it down, and I write down everything. But let's see, what was I going to mention? Oh, one of the reasons that we were having article difficulties this week is because since we had such a great turnout with the donations, I was able to add a very expensive thing that I've been wanting to get, which was the SSL, or the added security. In other words, if you don't have this little jewel on your website, if somebody visits your website for the first time, it will automatically tell them that it is an unsecure website. So by having this, people can come and visit and see what our leagues are, and hopefully, get on this waiting list. I've got, I think, 30 people for the Action PC football leagues waiting list. But we're a little shorthanded as far as the coach mode. PFL's been around so long, it will always stay full. The new Ready Set League, still trying to get, I think we got 7 people to get in there yet before we're full. But I anticipated that, and it's going to be an early spring kickoff anyway. So back to you, Calvin.
All right. So, Joe, you want to pick division winners or your playoff teams, or how do you want to go?
Well, the way I look at it, I'll split it up first between the NFC and the AFC. NFC, right now I see. I would be hard pressed to pick a team out of the East of the top 3 between Dallas, Philly, and the Giants that isn't going to make the playoffs. And that's been kind of my mental direction on that. I mean, I name me the team that wouldn't make it. So if you take those 3, and then I think Arizona and the Rams and Chicago are obviously all there. So there's your 6 teams. But who could sneak in there? And they're gonna, and who would they sneak in there against? And that's one reason why I think that Dallas Philly game is going to be really important. Because Len, if you end up losing a lot, don't do well against Philadelphia in the Giants, you may end up, or if Philadelphia has a problem with the Giants and you or whoever may slip. And if you look at the scores, all 3 of you guys are near about equal number of points, scored and defensively. So, if anybody doesn't make it out of those 3, it's going to have to be, you have to sort that out.
Well, for Dallas, I think the biggest thing for me is why I need to pad it a bit is because I don't have a lot of 10 endurances. I mean, I do, but a lot of key players are not. So I'll be missing some guys here and there,
Right.
and that can hurt me against these other teams in the NFC East.
Right. And so when you sit there and you look at if one of you guys slip in the NFC East, that then allows somebody to come in from unknown, and the three contenders, at least the way I see it, it's going to be Green Bay, Minnesota, and the Chargers. They would be the guys fighting for that shot. And so right now, all of those teams, Green Bay's tied with you. Minnesota's a half a game back, and the Chargers will be a half, probably. I would assume that by the at the worst, it'll be three teams 3-2 in the East. Otherwise, you'll be 4-1. Giants will be 3-2, and Philly will be 2-3. But I would be very reluctant to cut Philly, to say Philly's not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think the other interesting thing in the schedule, if my memory is right, the East is playing the East. So the AFC East is matched up with the NFC East. I think that's right. I know.
I'm playing Philly, so I'm playing the NFC East.
Yeah, but I mean, you.
I see. I got you.
We copy the NFL, so you probably got Jacksonville, Cleveland, Buffalo, all those teams we just talked about. It's probably on your schedule.
Yeah, I'm looking at your schedule, Lynn, right now, and you got a game against Atlanta, Detroit, but then you start going down there. You got a rematch with Carolina, Washington a couple times, or you already played Washington once, but in New Orleans. But I mean, you've got a lot of tough teams on your schedule, so it's and that's and then that opens the door for, like I said. I mean, right now I think a sleeper here is Green Bay, and then also the Chargers. They get on a roll, and so it'll take somebody slipping in the NFC East, as far as in my opinion, for one of these other three teams to possibly pop in there and sneak into the playoffs. And like I said, Eric's, he's been in some close games and stuff like that, but he'd be a lot better if he was 3-2 rather than 2-3.
Yeah, right.
Remember, Eric's been in this league since the beginning, and he has absolutely zero. He hasn't even had a 500 season. Every season he's won, if my memory's right. He's never had a losing season. And I don't think he's even been 500.
Wow.
Yeah.
That came out when I put the encyclopedia together. That was pretty impressive by Mr. Eric.
Who has the most wins?
I'd have to pull it up. It could well be. Well, I'm going to go with probably Kenny, but I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. Okay. How about the AFC?
AFC, I mean, you've got three teams again in the AFC East, in Jacksonville, Cleveland, and Buffalo. I think you've got to pretty much pencil them all in. Cincinnati right now, I don't think they're on that same tier, but they're 4-0. It's kind of hard to knock them out. So there's four teams. Now, the question is whether or not San Francisco's an imposter. I mean, they're still, I think the best divisional fight will be in the AFC West.
Yeah, because there's three teams that can win it, right?
Right. I mean, you have San Francisco, Denver, and Las Vegas. And, Vegas is down a little bit this year because, quarterback. And Denver is, I honestly think that it's tough to take over a team right over. I mean, Don's got a heck of a challenge. You've got a team that's got all these offensive weapons, and if you haven't coached them, and if you end up having new coaches every week, it's going to be kind of hard to really get a feel for what guys, of how to call plays and what to do. And so, if they go through week 8, and Denver's sitting there at 3-5 or 4-4, they may find themselves out, even though they may technically have the most talent out there. So,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that division winner will be hard pressed to win 10 games. I mean, they could. I haven't done, maybe 10, but I think that division is going to be pretty tight. I mean, it's a big game. Vegas really doesn't want to be 1-4, but that still doesn't put them out of it. And we apologize for ignoring the Chiefs and the Seahawks, but we just don't think y'all have quite have the numbers here.
At the beginning, when I was writing the preseason predictions, I sat there and I was torn between whether or not Kansas City or Seattle was going to be in the basement, and I feel very bad that I gave Kansas City such a slight, because Kansas City, Paul has done an excellent job with that team, and they may not get that number one, that top draft pick with that. But that being said, I don't even think they own theirs. I think Don owns their pick. So
there's a big difference between Tua and Darnold.
Yes.
Seattle's got to fight through Darnold. So.
And Jamar Chase is kind of a nice little toy.
Yeah, 18 yard per catch. Yeah. If I could have had him on my roster some kind of way without having to trade like Myles Garrett, I would have done it. But I had no money. I couldn't really make a trade. So I'd have to give up somebody and just create a problem somewhere else. So I'm like, nah.
So Cleveland has the number one defense. How good is their defense? I've not looked at them.
I think Joe played them.
Oh, you just played them?
No, first week, yeah, and they destroyed me. I mean, Stan was using the mercy rule about late third. But I mean, when you're sitting there and you got a team with 10, you got Aaron Donald 10 plus, Craig, Cam Hayward 10, and then on their linebackers they got Devondre Campbell, who's a 10, and then they also got Bobby Wagner, who's a 9. I mean, good luck trying to run against him. And by the way, Denzel Perryman, he's their third linebacker with an 8. So
yeah, you gotta if you can keep your quarterback up and try to pass, but good grief, they're brutal on the front seven.
Yeah, I thought maybe I was giving myself a chance with Trent Williams. I think he still sacked me like 7 times. So, but I mean, there, if you've got 10s in the middle of there's very few things that can really disrupt an offense more than sitting there and having pressure right up the middle.
Exactly.
Oh.
Cleveland is going to be very hard, just like last year.
Yeah. Jacksonville number one on offense.
Yeah, I mean, Sean's, he should be able to score some points, and he's also got a good defense. Not as good as Cleveland, but he's got a good defense.
Yeah, I think he went after more offense this year compared to last, because he got Kittle and he just got Hill.
He's averaging almost 400 yards a game.
Yeah. What's interesting, Las Vegas is number 2.
Yeah.
And that's where we're talking about Davis Mills. But that's where stats can be deceiving. We don't know if he had the ball a lot or what's going on offensively.
Like I said, when I was writing this thing up, the thing that caught me the most was, like I said, when I was looking at the Bills, offensively, number 1, points, 32.3. And then yards, 270, and they're ranked 26th. So they've been opportunistic. The question is, can they go in there against those other 2 teams in their division, and can they at least play 500 with them? If they can play 500 with those guys, then hey, it's gonna be a dogfight as far as who comes out of the AFC.
And I say Len's got the power rankings up. We were talking on chat about there. 3 of the top 5 are in the AFC East. My numbers are a little bit different. I have Buffalo. I think I maybe loaded an extra game. But
yeah,
the
you might
AFC
have.
East has got 3 of the top 6 in what you're showing.
Yeah, this is at the end of week 4.
Yeah, so I've got more. I mean, it's loaded. The only NFC team there is the Bears, not to self-promote. I'm like, man, just drowned by these AFC teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's Dallas, but that's again week 4, like you say. That's before Carolina debacle.
So I was getting ready to pull the game up and pull up next week's games and do picks on that, but we've got
we can, because we got next week. You got the main event.
Which
you
one?
Got Maine brothers against each other.
Oh, really? Really?
The main event.
Yeah. Well, I don't like to take away from Joe's articles. They're really good, and people like to read them. So I don't like to take away from that. So we'll stray away from that. But
Well, I'll give it.
Oh.
You can talk about the main event, Joe. I gave you.
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I think it's at Philly, if I remember right, but I might be
Right.
wrong. It's good to see the brothers do battle.
Well, I can tell you who I'm rooting for.
Yeah, I know who you're rooting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I every time I start thinking, well, maybe Kenny, maybe they're slipping a little bit there. And Kenny shows me why he's won 2 championships, and then he just won a PSFL championship. So,
Yeah, and as he would say, his PSFL team was not even. He didn't think he had a good enough team. He didn't even trade. He was 10 mil below the cap, I think.
well, we got Rogers this is for
This is for Philly.
Philly. We got Rogers at quarterback. Their lead rusher, well, the most dangerous one here is going to be Sanders, but he's got 137 carries.
It's their defense. I mean, Ricky does defense like I have this year. I kind of vacillate.
He's got a
very
good defensive line, yeah, good one.
And he's got T.J. Watt to just throw your quarterback into the
that front
dirt a
seven.
bunch of times.
That front seven's monsters. Look at that.
Yeah, he comes somewhat close to Cleveland.
Yeah, he's got 7 and 6 on pass coverage for safeties, but he's got 8 and 7 and 6 cornerbacks. But any of those can go out at any time. None of them's he's only got 110. That's Buda Baker.
Yeah, that's one thing, Len, where you're talking about injuries. I think virtually every team is. I know I've got a ton of injuries, and I basically, I won't have my whole offensive line together for about maybe one game because, I got Nelson misses 5 games, and Bowles misses 4, and Lewin and Kelly, they all miss like 4 or 5 games.
I know. I'll always get injury bitten. But I never have a good team of endurances. Kamara, he's not any good anymore. So I think here where Kenny's lacking a little bit with his running backs, but he's got that 10-plus guy there and then Adams. But
you got Adams and Kelsey. What else do you
and
need?
he's got well, you need that third guy. Offensive line, he's about the same as his brother. Defensive line, not as good. Linebackers, not as good. Cornerbacks, yeah. I do believe the Eagles are going to win that one.
from your mouth to God's ears, there, Len.
I know Joe's rooting for that. Let the record reflect. I don't know who's going to win. I got to play both of them anyway in the playoffs. So that's what I could rile up the AFC West because
I get stuck with them in my division in every league. I'm in 2 damn leagues, but I get one of the main boys in there, in the PAFL and the PSAFL in my division.
In a different city. You got to go away from Dallas.
I remember when they were joining up, I was ready to say no. You can't be in my division.
Anyway, the chatter you've been missing on Slackland is Don Merlenbach. He's been complaining. He's been, he's just tongue in cheek, but he looks at the AFC West. He's like, I want to trade. I want to trade divisions. I'm like,
Oh,
I don't know. It seems like you're talking some slack.
yeah. Hey, tell him I know how he feels because there's in the PFL, which I'm not a part of now because I'm starting Ready Set, but. In the PFL, I was like, Mike, come on, man. I'm in a tough division. I think when I quit that to start Ready Set, I think I was 0-8, and I had the Rams.
Yeah, but like I told him, you can be in an easy division, so you make the playoffs. Well, you haven't been tested all year. You're just probably going to fall flat in the playoffs. I told him, there's no cakewalk in the NFC. We just talked about it. The Mains are there. Eric's there, Joe's there. There's no cakewalk. Some divisions may look a little easier than others, but I still in the playoffs. Do you want to play Denver? Just remember this is the Denver team that last year took down Cleveland, and Cleveland had a very similar defense last year.
Yeah,
and that was a if I remember that game correctly, it was like a really weird play, right? He ended up scoring like in the last 28 seconds, 29 seconds.
Howard was like cooking. Denver has got offense out the wazoo. And even this year, Don's probably like, geez, I got too many shiny objects here. I don't know how to deal with all of this offense because they're loaded. So you just don't know. If they get hot.
Yep, that's right. right, guys, is there anything else we need to cover?
Nothing. Oh, only thing I will say is sorry for the last 2 weeks, guys. This has not been a great year so far, so I'm hoping that the year gets better. But
Ought to be fine.
Yeah,
It'll be
like I
fine.
said, that leg infection, boy, I'll tell you what.
Ew.
I would get done with work, I'd have to put my leg up, and then I'm falling asleep. So
Wow.
it was like, so that's why no articles for 2 weeks.
Right. No,
No, and
fine.
I know. Yeah,
I asked if you were okay. I remember asking Colin, I said, is Joe okay? He said, yeah, I just talked to him. I said, okay. I didn't ask if you were sick or anything. I just wondered because I hadn't heard from you.
Oh no, yeah, no, not too many people had heard from me, and then like I said, this came like just like 10 days after my mother passed and stuff like that. So
Sorry to
then
hear
I
that.
was like, and then I was like sitting there and found out the reliability of the United States Postal Service for delivering ashes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
but,
Well, we appreciate the articles when you can do them.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Everybody enjoys them.
And Don, everybody else, anybody can write an article. It's all explained on the
Anybody
website.
can. Yes. All they have to do is sign up and they can write it. Doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be long. I mean, you can do one paragraph, just say, hey, I got my ass kicked. It sucked.
Oh, Don's been quite creative. Anything I may have written pales in terms of graphic display because he uses these fake newspaper clippings and stuff like that, and he writes this stuff in there, and so
I put a very
unfortunately-
small portion on the main website, but he does use graphics and helmets and. all
Hey, he
kinds
can
of
do that here. I mean, he can post a picture, He can go into the league articles and just post the picture that he does it with.
You have to sit there and see if he could get that because they're both entertaining as well as they're well thought out, well written. Anybody that may have ever had the impression that Don's just some old hope, back in Missouri, and I was born in Missouri and not too far from where he is.
Some
so,
old geezer.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like sitting there. In fact, yesterday when I wrote in the write up that he's going to have to go to Champagne to Bud Light, he messages me on Slack and he goes, "Too bad I lost your number." He goes, "I got something I didn't show you." So then I gave him my cell number and he shows. He goes, I'm reading this and he sat up with a Bud Light in his hand. So.
Oh, very good. So we should do another show sometime the latter part of February.
Yeah, whenever y'all want to, just hit me
Should
up.
be about the midway point of the season. Things should be taking shape, maybe.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'll see you on here after we're done with the show. So I guess a couple weeks from now we'll do it again, right?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, man. Sounds good to me.
That's all, folks.